In this video, we are going to talk about the deadliest hurricane you've never heard of one, a storm lost to time. When people think of deadly hurricanes, names like Katrina, Maria, and Harvey come to mind, storms etched in memory by their massive media coverage and catastrophic impact. But history holds darker, lesser-known secrets. One such event, largely forgotten by the modern world, is the Great Hurricane of 1780, the deadliest Atlantic hurricane on record, claiming an estimated 22,000 to 27,000 lives. Despite its unimaginable toll, this storm is rarely mentioned, overshadowed by more recent disasters. Why is the deadliest hurricane in Atlantic history so obscure? The answer lies in the storm's age, its context, and the chaos it left behind during a time when information spread slowly and records were sparse. 2. The setting, war and weather. The year was 1780. The American Revolutionary War raged across the Atlantic, and the Caribbean was a battleground for European colonial powers, primarily Britain, France, and Spain. Islands like Barbados, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent Lucia, and Martinique were not just homes to civilians, but also strategic military holdings. Amid this geopolitical turmoil, a monstrous hurricane emerged in mid-October, striking with a force that even modern scientists struggle to comprehend. The storm didn't just destroy homes and towns, it decimated entire fleets, obliterated islands, and killed thousands of soldiers and civilians alike. In a cruel twist of fate, this deadly hurricane struck when record-keeping was weak, and human suffering was already abundant due to war. 3. The birth of a monster. Modern meteorology was centuries away in 1780, so we don't have satellite data or radar tracks for the storm, but historical accounts and survivors' testimonies give chilling clues. The hurricane is believed to have first formed east of the Lesser Antilles, possibly as a Cape Verde-type hurricane, fueled by warm Atlantic waters. It quickly intensified and moved westward, gaining power as it approached the Caribbean. Unlike many storms that weaken or change paths, this one maintained catastrophic strength throughout its journey. The first island to suffer its wrath was Barbados on October 10, 1780, where it struck with winds estimated at over 200 miles per hour, 320 kilometers per hour, stronger than any hurricane measured in modern times. 4. Barbados, the first to fall. On Barbados, the destruction was apocalyptic. Eyewitnesses described trees ripped from the ground, homes shattered, and entire families swept away. British military barracks were flattened, killing hundreds of soldiers in seconds. Ships anchored offshore were thrown onto land or smashed to pieces against the reefs. The island's capital, Bridgetown, was nearly obliterated. In some villages, not a single building was left standing. Survivors had to dig through rubble to retrieve the dead, many of whom were never found. Historical estimates suggest that over 4,000 people died on Barbados alone, a staggering number considering the island's population at the time. The storm marches. After leaving Barbados in ruins, the hurricane moved northwest across the Caribbean Sea, continuing its path of devastation. The French-controlled island of Martinique was next. On October 12th, the storm struck with equal ferocity, destroying the capital of Saint-Pierre and flattening thousands of homes. Over 9,000 people were killed on Martinique, including many French soldiers stationed there. The hurricane then lashed St. Lucia and St. Vincent, causing massive landslides, flooding, and structural collapse. Coastal communities were wiped out, and survivors were left without food, clean water, or medical aid. Entire plantations were lost, leading to long-term economic ruin. 6th, naval disaster. Fleets destroyed. What sets the Great Hurricane of 1780 apart from other deadly storms is its impact on military fleets. In a time of naval warfare, dozens of ships from British, French, and Dutch forces were positioned throughout the Caribbean. When the storm hit, it capsized or shattered many of them. The British Royal Navy lost multiple warships off Barbados and St. Lucia. Lucia, including the HMS Thunderer, which went down with over 600 men aboard. French and Spanish fleets also suffered significant losses, weakening their military presence in the region. The storm disrupted communication and supply lines, altering the course of wartime engagements in the Caribbean theater. 7. Death and despair on land. The storm didn't just destroy property, it brought widespread starvation and disease in its aftermath. With crops obliterated, fresh water contaminated, and infrastructure ruined, survivors struggled to stay alive. The combination of malnutrition, infection, and injuries led to more deaths in the weeks that followed. Some small islands, like Grenada and Dominica, experienced near-total devastation of their agricultural output. These colonies were reliant on exports like sugar, coffee, and cotton. With the plantations destroyed and slave labor systems disrupted, local economies collapsed, causing suffering that lasted for years. Tens of thousands were left homeless, traumatized, and destitute. 8. A storm without a name. One of the reasons the Great Hurricane of 1780 is so often overlooked is because it occurred before the era of named storms. The World Meteorological Organization didn't begin naming hurricanes until the mid-20th century. Without a name, the storm lacks the immediate emotional recognition of hurricanes like Katrina or Sandy. It also occurred in a colonial era when the lives of Caribbean islanders, many of whom were enslaved Africans, were not widely recorded or valued in official European narratives. Much of what we know comes from letters, naval logs, and scattered missionary or military reports. The victims were largely voiceless in historical records. Estimating the death toll, the estimated death toll of 22,000 to 27,000 makes the Great Hurricane of 1780 the deadliest in the Atlantic Basin. However, exact numbers are elusive. In many places, entire communities were wiped out, and there were few survivors to tell the story. Some estimates suggest the death toll could be even higher, particularly among enslaved populations whose losses were not meticulously recorded. By comparison, Hurricane Mitch in 1998, the second deadliest Atlantic storm, killed about 11,000 people. The fact that the Great Hurricane occurred without modern communication or global awareness further obscures its catastrophic scale. The aftermath, a region reeling. The Caribbean did not recover quickly from the storm. With economic lifelines severed and military support weakened, colonial powers struggled to maintain control over their island territories. The hurricane had political consequences as well, shifting the balance of power in the region. Trade routes were disrupted, supply chains were broken, and social unrest began to rise. For those living through the disaster, life was permanently altered. Survivors faced famine, homelessness, and despair. Churches served as makeshift hospitals. Ships from Europe brought supplies, but also new diseases. The Caribbean would not see such widespread destruction again until over a century later. 11th. Scientific retrospective. Modern hurricane researchers have tried to reconstruct the Great Hurricane using historical meteorological techniques, survivor accounts, and computer modeling. Based on the damage described, some experts estimate that the storm would have been a Category 5 hurricane on the modern Saffir-Simpson scale, possibly with sustained winds of 200+ miles per hour, something rarely observed even in today's strongest storms. If it occurred today, the damage would likely be measured in the hundreds of billions of dollars, and the death toll could have been even worse due to population growth. The storm is now studied as a benchmark for worst-case hurricane scenarios in disaster planning models. I hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for future updates. See you in the next video.